So while this event might be virtual, feel free to join us here at Ketchikan Museums, the Totem Heritage Center, and the Tongass Historical Museum during our open hours, which is Tuesday through Saturday, 1 to 5 p.m., or by appointment.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today on Facebook Live. I'd like to first acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the traditional lands of the Tontaquan Tlingit. It is especially poignant for us to begin with a land acknowledgement because you have joined us today in our discussion about mapping the landscape and our exhibit updates at the Totem Heritage Center. We filmed throughout our exhibit updates, and we've been able to clip some of that in today while we discuss the importance of our update. Some of that footage includes Brandon Castle, who was our exhibit intern this summer, and you'll learn more about who he is and how he helped us. If you have any questions throughout this Museum Midday program, Brandon and I are going to be in the comment section here to answer any of those questions that you might have, and museum staff will be on hand to help moderate. I'm Ryan McHale, and I am the curator of exhibits here at Ketchikan Museums. This past summer, we were able to focus on updates at the Heritage Center. We have some footage from this summer, and I'll let Brandon introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Brandon Castle, and I'm an intern here this summer at the Totem Heritage Center. I am part of the Museology graduate program at the University of Washington. So I am from Ketchikan and born and raised here, and being from Ketchikan, I think, is pretty unique. I am also a former tour guide here at the Heritage Center, and I started in 2016 after my freshman year in college, and it was really eye-opening to be at the museum. I was originally studying political science. I had switched my majors a bunch of times. But coming here to the Heritage Center was a really great experience, and I changed my major to anthropology and felt really inspired by the work that was being done at the museum. So I am really interested in the way that museums share and represent and really showcase different stories and different narratives. I've been really inspired by some of the work that I've done in museums involving Indigenous communities and Native artists coming in and really sharing their knowledge. That's something that I'm really passionate about, is how museums can promote cultural preservation and how they can really be an important part of strengthening communities. So that all really started when I was at the Totem Heritage Center. Since then, it's just been me really trying to seek different opportunities in museums and ways to continually really work on making museums a place for people to come and share, exchange information, and really celebrate who we are.
The poles that we have at the Totem Heritage Center have been removed from their original context. This was done in 1969 in partnership with the Alaska State Museum, the Smithsonian, the National Forest Service, and the Alaska Native Brotherhood and Sisterhood to preserve these poles. The map really is helpful in providing context to where these poles came from and additional information about the village sites. As a non-native and coming to Ketchikan, Alaska, I have to understand the process of how I have actually been able to reside on this land. And it is extremely important for us to both understand the longer history of the land, but then also amplify that and recenter Indigenous place names on the map. When we're talking about mapping the landscape is extremely important because it is, just like learning about where you are and learning about how you interact with the land and understanding that your own perceptions shape how you actually move through the land. So if we can help inform you, you may like interact and have different experiences with the land that otherwise you might not have. And that's why understanding the indigenous place names of a certain site or place that you're going to actually can help enrich your experience. The history of these places does not begin when Western colonialism came to Alaska. These place names and these locations go back thousands of years in history. And when we can bring that into our own understanding, it changes the way that we see and move through the land.
So this summer, I've been interning here at the Totem Heritage Center, and because it's a very unique year for all of us, there's been a lot of extra time to really focus on how to update and how to really change the exhibits here at the Totem Heritage Center. One of the biggest updates that we've been doing is really looking at this area that we're in, the land that we're on, and how to really represent and show that through the different lenses that we can see that through. So, as a former tour guide, this map here has been kind of the primary map that people go to look at the different village sites, the different cities. And while the map is pretty comprehensive, the map is it's a Forest Service map from 1973. And this whole area, this is all of Southeast Alaska here, the map is pretty outdated. And a lot of these village descriptions, city descriptions, are probably a tad bit inaccurate. And so it really needs some attention. This was one of the primary goals of our updates, is really getting something that's more representative of Southeast Alaska. But yeah, so this whole area, this is a lot of information, and a lot of it is told from a specific perspective. And so part of why we wanted to update this map was because there are many different stories that are connected to this landscape. And that includes a lot of the indigenous perspectives and stories. The histories here there are so many stories in different ways that we can understand the landscape, and there's a lot of knowledge systems that really allow us to be more aware of just how much knowledge is in the land and what we can learn. And I think this is a really great opportunity for people to be able to dig deeper in their knowledge of where they live, and really acknowledge and interact with these different histories that have been here since time immemorial. So I think that this is a really great chance for people to come in and learn about where they are, the land that they live on. There's many different stories that go beyond just Ketchikan, a history that spans thousands of years. And I think that for people to come in and see that, I think is a really special thing.
Hi, this is Ryan from Today, and as you can see behind me, the map is no longer here. We have it in the side gallery at the Totem Heritage Center, and after today's presentation, we open up at 1 o'clock and you can come on in and see it for yourself.
Here is a sneak peek of our map that we're updating. And the main focus of this map is really to center indigenous languages and indigenous knowledge on the landscape and about the landscape. This is really important for people to understand and familiarize themselves with, because I think that when we focus on indigenous knowledge, we allow ourselves to really learn more about the indigenous cultures that call this area home, and acknowledge these histories that have been on this land for a very long time, for thousands of years. And by centering indigenous knowledge, we can learn about what the names mean in Indigenous languages such as Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian, and really understand where people have moved, where they have moved from, around Southeast Alaska, how they traveled, and how these languages and cultural knowledge systems, how they're here still today, and how people are using them today for cultural revitalization. So, if you do visit us here at the Heritage Center, once this map is complete, we're really hoping to incorporate different objects and information that is really tied to Indigenous languages. And so some of the information that we can learn from Indigenous languages has to do with how people interacted with the land. So that includes how people harvested, so different fishing sites, different areas where people would go to harvest. Some of the topics that we really hope people learn about with the Indigenous languages is how they tell us different sites of harvest and where to find different natural resources. Other information includes different communities and where they're located, and the clans that had lived in these village sites. And so that includes ceremony, where people were gathering, places, that people really felt a sense of place and a sense of home like they do today. And another main focus of our map is how Indigenous languages really tell us different stories of the land and how people were moving around, and how they're traveling through our really unique area here. In Southeast Alaska, we have a very unique geographical landscape. And so to be able to understand how people navigated and still do today is a really important part of what we want to really show people in these updates. So this fall, instead of going back to school, I'll actually be staying here in Ketchikan, taking classes remotely, and really still trying to think about museums, even though we can't visit them technically or work in them in some different locations. It's been really great to be here in Ketchikan and have these opportunities to be able to be in the museum and really think about these updates. But for me, I'll be going to classes remotely and really trying to think about the next steps for the museum field, and how museums can really strengthen their missions and really serve their communities in different ways. I'm super grateful to the Heritage Center for having me come in and work on this project. It's been really valuable to really see this process through, and something that I'm really thinking about moving forward is how we can really connect with our community, connect with our heritage as community members, and how a museum can really foster these. One aspect of what I've learned this summer and what I'm really interested in moving forward is really just for community members and the public, the museum going public, is thinking about preservation, cultural preservation in the foreground, and really how we can as a community really come together and share knowledge and have museums be places where knowledge is reciprocated. And other things that I've really learned that are super valuable are how we can make museums more inclusive and really have people come in and see themselves represented in the museum and in exhibits. And I think that it's been really exciting to work on that, and creating exhibits I think is something really interesting and exciting process of reaching out to people and really thinking a lot about how we can make people feel more welcomed and feel more seen in the museum.
Maps can be both empowering and a tool of control. Throughout history, map making has impacted Indigenous cultures and identities. Starting in the mid-1700s, foreign explorers, prospectors, and settlers came to Alaska seeking to claim and exploit the land. Colonial names were written onto records and maps, erasing Indigenous peoples from their traditional territories. While colonization may seem like a relic of the past, it continues to define the world that we live in today. Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian place names connect us to a vital system of reference passed down through generations. Recentering Indigenous place names on the map reasserts the continued presence and sovereignty of Indigenous peoples. It's one thing to say that I want to put a map on a wall, but it's another thing to actually paint it. And part of that was figuring out what type of projector we needed in our limited space to throw it on there. And part of that was working and reaching out to the Ketchikan Area Arts and Humanities Council to use their short throw projector in this really tight space between cases. Once we got the projector, then the next stage really came in, and it's the process of really tracing and then painting the entire section of southern Southeast Alaska. It really was a long process, and it involved everyone in the museum, whether that was helping us with tech support or coming in for an hour or two and tracing out bays and inlets. A landscape is more than just bays and rivers and what you see represented on the map. It is the people that live there, their stories and their cultures. And that is why we decided to place objects actually on top of the landscape and on top of the map. There's a lot of information on this wall, and we anticipated it being a little overwhelming. So we've provided access points throughout the exhibit so visitors can really jump in and get their feet wet. Some of the themes that you can explore on this map are movement and travel, fishing, celebration and feasting, and seasons of harvest. So the objects that we've selected are representing all three nations, Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian. And we've actually placed them over the locations that these objects generally come from.
So for our map, hopefully the next time you come to the Heritage Center, this map will have different objects and different information that is really going to tell the story of the land more. So what we're currently working on is we've designed these cases, and we're going to have several objects that really represent different themes, especially in Indigenous languages. So things like travel, and we're really trying to show all the different nations as well. So we're going to include Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian objects. And also another thing is we're still working on tracing all the landscape, so we have a couple more rivers to fill in on the map here, and yeah, we're really excited. We're really excited to have people come and interact with this, and what we hope is that people, while they see the map, we hope that these objects also kind of help bring this area to life and really show that this isn't just a landscape on a map, but it's somewhere that people call home. It's somewhere that people have a really deep knowledge about and have created different, different senses of being and living in this area. And so what we hope is that when people walk through here, they really see, these different themes of, things like ceremony and coming together, gathering, harvesting, that this all is an essential part of the land that we live on.
What's exciting about this is that you can really zoom into the map and then pull yourself back out and really be wowed by the landscape. So while we were developing this exhibit, one of our main leading questions was, what's in a name? And names express place, culture, and identity. Throughout this project, Brandon kept reminding me that place is culture and culture is place. This map is not just an isolated wall on the gallery, but it actually encompasses the entire room. Yeah, this map really helps provide the context for these poles, both where they came from and the stories connected to them.
As someone who is studying museums, it's been really great to see these kind of ideas and ways of doing museum work in the classroom and then applying that to an internship and an opportunity like this at the Totem Heritage Center. For example, it's been really awesome to see an exhibit development process from the beginning to the end. And along that way, we've been really able to look at different aspects of museum work, such as community collaboration. We've been able to see the process of exhibit development. So looking at the resources and the tools we have to create an exhibit and being able to work with what we have and think about what we need for a project like this. Finally, it was really awesome to be able to think about how people will interact and learn new information with this exhibit. So throughout that process and throughout our research with this update, we've been really trying to think about these different ways that people can learn and engage with this type of information. It's a lot to take in, and so we really tried to create exhibit information and labels that really allow people to see the variety of information that comes along with something like the landscape and different objects. And so as a museology student, this entire process has been really eye-opening and really great to be able to apply skills that I've learned in the classroom to a real-world project. So I'm super grateful for the University of Washington Museology graduate program in that this opportunity has really provided me the skills necessary to create and develop and think more critically about museum exhibits and museum work. That's been really valuable, and I'm super grateful to be able to think more critically about how an exhibit can come together and what types of stories can be represented, and how to use different resources to be able to do that, how to really reach out to the community and really get community voice involved in a project.